Roar!
Ew. Your fangs are showing by Bucking Nonsense. Awkwardness intensifies. As soon as I have someplace to hang it, I'm going to have this framed and mounted on my wall. Fluttershy giggled at the changeling's good cheer as Cricket held up the certificate that proclaimed him to be a probationary citizen of Equestria. He looked as happy as any pony, or any buggy, could ever be. They were riding back to Ponyville, having had a brief but exciting stay in Canterlot. Twilight had been right. There was a list of conditions he had to abide by, and it was, in fact, exactly as long as he was tall. But he'd found them all to be a lot more fair than expected. Although one, admittedly, he had some concerns about. Celestia had, in fact, met them at the train station in Canterlot, and after, with surprising tact even for a princess, made certain that Cricket was not a threat to any pony, had graciously granted the changeling an audience. Things had gotten a little tense when Princess Cadence and Shining Armor arrived that evening and insisted on being part of the interview as well. But Mole had made a surprisingly good impression on both of the princess and the knight. While they did have misgivings, Twilight was able to convince them that the changeling at least deserved a chance. If he succeeded in living by the conditions set by the princesses for a full year, he'd be made a full-fledged citizen of Equestria, with all the rights thereof. His mood was contagious, as even Twilight couldn't help but giggle a bit herself. Part of that may have been the fact that Miss Cuddlewampus was sleeping atop the grinning changeling's head. "Well, be sure to save some space for when you get your full-fledged declaration of citizenship," the princess said, smiling. "A year can pass a lot faster than you think." Cricket seemed momentarily stunned, but after a moment he smiled and said, sounding genuinely grateful, "Thanks for the vote of confidence, Your Highness." He looked thoughtful for a moment, and for at least the 100th time said, "I do kind of wish they'd left Condition 1 off that list. That one's going to cause a lot of headaches." Condition 1. He was not allowed to change his appearance anymore. Yes, there was a list of sub-conditions to that. He could change appearance for the purpose of entertaining others, or if he needed to do so as a form of self-defense, or even to defend his fellow citizens. He could not, however, change his appearance for any purpose outside of those reasons. Those sub-conditions were very important to him. He'd argued, no, practically begged to instead be allowed to at least just keep a single disguise going all the time and never take any other appearance. When Shining Armor had questioned why he was making such a fuss about it, Mole had asked, in a surprisingly friendly tone, how the knight would feel if he was asked to walk around shaved, completely bald for a year. The knight had blushed, sputtered briefly, and admitted he hadn't thought of it like that. That had gotten more than a few laughs from all assembled, but it had also made his point clear. Being able to change his appearance was a part of who he was, and forbidding him from doing so without any leeway would be unreasonable. He had relented after the sub-conditions had been added, admittingly that the sooner ponies got used to the sight of a changeling, the better off he'd probably be. As he watched the scenery go by, Fluttershy said, smiling, "Well, look at it this way. At least you'll only have to abide by it for a year. After that you can change how you look however you want, whenever you want, and no pony can say a thing. Not that there's anything wrong with the way you look right now, of course." Stupid Fluttershy. Now you've gone and hurt his feelings. Rather than being offended, Fluttershy was surprised to see he was blushing, and after a moment he mumbled, "Thanks." His cheeks turned bright blue when he blushed. It was actually kind of cute. "We're almost to Ponyville," Twilight said, placing a hoof on Cricket's shoulder. "Don't worry, I'm sure you'll fit right in." The changeling smiled and said, "Well, I certainly hope so. I'm just glad I'll have a couple of friends there with me. Twilight Sparkle smiled at that, and Fluttershy couldn't help but smile herself. Although, for some reason, she felt a twinge of something she couldn't put into words at the word friends. She would have to think about that later. Once the train pulled into the station, every pony got up and got ready to disembark. Fluttershy could see Rarity, Rainbow Dash, Applejack and Pinkie Pie all together at the train station, holding a big banner with "Welcome Back" written on it. Fluttershy smiled, happy to be back home. Cricket pulled out his emergency pack and strapped it on his back. It contained everything he felt he'd need to make a fresh start in Ponyville, and what little he had left behind could be sent for, or easily replaced. Miss Cuddlewampus yawned, then sat up, awake for the first time since the train ride started. She was such a cute little thing, she wondered how she and Angel Bunny would get along. Twilight exited the train first, and seeing their friends at the train station, smiled and rushed over. Fluttershy left next, and was about to introduce the others to Cricket, when a great many things happened at once. Rarity screamed. Pinkie Pie's jaw dropped, and Applejack started shouting. Rainbow Dash, as always, was the quickest, and her reaction was simple. She attacked. She leapt high into the air, then, with a flap of her wings, launched herself into a fierce flying kick, yelling all the way down. Fluttershy turned, shocked, tried to warn Mole, but the changeling was already reacting. He rose up on his hind legs, crossed his forelegs in front of himself, and blocked the kick. Fluttershy was stunned, to say the least. She'd seen Rainbow Dash break bricks with that kind of kick, but Cricket had taken it head-on, without even flinching, and with a motion so smooth and well executed, it could have been choreographed, rather than a spontaneous reaction. The force of Dash's kick seemed to have no effect on the changeling, but the wooden floor beneath him was not so lucky. The floorboards collapsed beneath him, and he fell out of sight. Rainbow was about to say something, probably something about running to the guards for help, when suddenly Cricket's voice boomed out of the hole, shouting,
"And just what do you think that was, maggot?"
Fluttershy was shocked, hearing that tone of voice again. It was the same tone, but at much higher volume, that Cricket had used when he had berated her for her fangs showing, thinking she was a changeling. All of her friends stopped what they were doing, stunned. The effect it had on Rainbow Dash, however, was surprising. She stopped, mid-flap, and fell to the ground at full attention. As Cricket began climbing out of the hole, he continued at a slightly more reasonable volume.
"Because that could have not been a surprise attack!"
Cricket finished climbing out of the hole, and then, his face a bare inch from Dashy's, he said with a growl,
"You know why? Because the only thing that surprised me was how sloppy it was!"
Rainbow Dash didn't try to argue, didn't even visibly react, except to lean her head back slightly, and suddenly, Fluttershy understood why. That voice, no, that tone. That was a commanding officer's tone. Dashy was acting as if she was getting a dressing down from some pony like Spitfire, rather than a changeling she'd never met before. This wasn't Cricket, or even Mole Cricket. It was Commander Mole Cricket doing the talking right now. The commander, now in full drill sergeant mode, continued saying,
"First off, you never launch a surprise attack from the front, because your target will see it a mile away. Attack from the back or sides only. Second, yelling at the top of your lungs gives away your position to the enemy, even if you are attacking from the back. And if you take the target by surprise, great job. Now every enemy in earshot will know where you are, and be ready to do something about it. Third, and this is something that really ticks me off when I see it, don't launch an aerial attack with the sun at your back. What, you think that the enemy won't notice the great big shadow you're casting? Even if they can't see you clearly, they will know something is coming, and from where, and can just step out of the way. Now!"
Cricket said, his voice now icy with anger instead of burning hot.
What have you got to say for yourself, maggot?
Dashi, as if she only now was able to move her lips, stammered out,
Sorry, sir. Wasn't thinking, sir.
Cricket growled.
Well, I can believe that. Now drop and give me 50!
Rainbow Dash saluted, shouted,
Sir, yes, sir.
then started doing push-ups, counting as she went. Cricket? Fluttershy said when she found her voice. The changeling turned to face her, and she said, as gently as she could, Your fangs are showing. Cricket raised a hoof to his lips, and for a second he seemed confused. Then he laughed as he realized what she meant. Your fangs are showing. You look like a monster instead of a pony. Cricket nodded and, his voice more reasonably toned, said,
Right, sorry. I really should know better.
He put a hoof on Rainbow Dash's back and said,
You can stop, miss. Sorry, I kinda lost my temper for a second.
As though some kind of spell had broken, Dashi stopped and asked, obviously confused,
What was I doing?
A great many things happened at once. Pinkie Pie started laughing, Rarity started laughing, Applejack started laughing, Twilight Sparkle started laughing, Rainbow Dash flushed with embarrassment, and Fluttershy started laughing. Twilight Sparkle smiled and introduced the changeling to her friends.
Let me introduce you to my newest friend. This is Commander Mole Cricket, formerly of the Changeling Swarm. With Princess Celestia's, Luna's, Cadence's permission, as well as my own, he'll be staying in Pony&Wolf for the time being. I hope you'll all join me in making him feel welcome.
Cricket smiled sheepishly, and as personal introductions were made, Fluttershy ran her tongue over her teeth again, feeling for what she knew would be there. Yes, the fangs were back. They'd probably never go away completely, but she supposed she could live with that. It would never define who she was. That night, she wrote in her diary the following. A pair of sharp teeth doesn't make any pony, or any buggy, a monster. Neither does a scary face or anything else. Even the scariest looking creature in the world can have a heart of gold. It's who you are, not what you look like, that really matters. Afterward and acknowledgements. There's a lot of folks I want to thank, but I'm sorry to say that I don't know all of their names, since they're all of you, the readers. All plus 1,000 of you, who've read this story, upvoted it, faved it, and decided to follow me to see what I do next. This was my first attempt at a story, and I'm so glad to see it takes off like it has. To answer some questions, yes, I do plan on a sequel after I complete the interquel I have in progress. Yes, the link to the interquel is in the story description. Feel free to read it if you haven't already. The sequel should be interesting, but that's for a ways down the line. And a lot of stuff in it may not make sense unless you read the interquel as well, so feel free to read both, and reread them, and comment, and upvote, and follow, and anything else you think might contribute. I adore fan art, so feel free to make me some! Finally, I do plan on submitting this story to Equestria Daily in a little while. I hadn't done so yet because I didn't realize you had to do it yourself. I just figured that stories kinda just appeared there by magic. I'm naive like that. Anyways, thank you for reading this story. I said it before and I will say it again. I love you all as much as a random person on the internet can love a large number of random people on the internet. And this is once again Common Time with Visual Pony. I am Visual Pony, as you surely know, don't you? And as always, I will remind you that you can support us via the Patreon links down in the description. Every dollar is needed, appreciated, and very much needed. Wait, I think I said that already. Anyhow, yes, I did include the afterword and acknowledgements here. After all, it was just too short to do it in a separate file, so I was like, okay, let's just add it at the end of the last chapter. So, yeah, I kinda love it here. How Dashi is attacking Cricket and he's like, what do you think that was, maggot? Because it surely wasn't a surprise attack.
And then he chews her out like a drill sergeant. Well, he is. He is an officer. So, yeah. An officer even who chewed out Chrysalis. I really hope that he finds his way in Ponyville. I will very likely not do the sequel or interquel for now. But maybe I will read them for myself, because, believe it or not, ever since I started narrating stories, I barely ever read stories just for myself. Just for enjoyment. So yeah, and I actually used to be a real bookworm. Like, I had a huge shelf with over 500 books on it. Which I eventually all sold. Anyhow. By the way, I read all of those books. Anyhow, that said, let me know what you think about this story. I liked it. I really did. And I am Visual Pony, signing off.